version released earlier this week reveals that Department of Justice officials became concerned after observing Nada on surveillance footage moving boxes out of a Mar-a-Lago storage room. Well, here to unpack this and what's ahead in this investigation is criminal defense attorney and NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos. Danny, help me unpack this box here. What could the surveillance footage of Nada moving these boxes really indicate about Trump's potential criminal intent?
Well, for the prosecution, it represents another piece of the puzzle, and you have the physical act of Walt Nauta moving boxes. Assuming those boxes can be proved to have classified documents and the other documents that are at issue in this case, then that is pretty damaging. But playing defense attorney for just a second, there are a couple different things you can say about the video, which is that Walt Nauta, as a defendant, it doesn't necessarily show that Nauta knows what's in those documents. It doesn't show why he moved the documents. If you're Trump's defense team, you're going to argue that simply because Nauta moved the documents doesn't mean he did so at a direct order by the former president. So these pieces of surveillance evidence, video evidence, are always compelling. In fact, juries have come to expect this kind of evidence. Recordings, video, DNA, all that kind of high-tech stuff has just become standard practice in courts, and juries start wondering, where is this stuff? They're used to it. So it's helpful to the government. The government loves this kind of evidence. But, of course, they need to fill in all the other gaps. And those gaps are mostly in the area of intent. Who knew what and why did they do it?
But, Danny, I remember reading when this, when it was officially filed in court, and we saw the long document from Jack Smith that built this narrative, and it was the prosecution's document, right? I think it's important for people to understand that, about what exactly Donald Trump and Walt Nauta are being charged with and why. And there's text messages that we saw. There's Walt Nauta going in to voluntarily meet with lawyers from the Justice Department, saying he didn't know about any other boxes. He couldn't be helpful. And then there's a surveillance tape showing the opposite, plus all of these text messages and whatnot. So is this not a case where we have a lot of information about intent, or is it too early to make that judgment?
No, there's a lot of evidence of intent. What I'm saying is that this video adds a piece to that, but it's not an overwhelming piece in the sense that the rest of the indictment contains so much evidence. And believe me when I tell you that the indictment, while it's full of facts and detail, does not represent every piece of evidence that the government has. And this emerging video of Walt Nauta is a classic example. We didn't know it existed. We hadn't seen it before, but it's something that is a compelling piece that adds to the evidence. The jury can infer that, well, there's Walt Nauta moving boxes. As long as the government proves what's in those boxes, they've gone a long way to proving their overall theory, which is that Trump had the documents, Trump knew he had the documents, Trump refused to give them back, and probably the most damning piece of all, when Trump was faced with a request, a subpoena for those documents, he may have allegedly moved them around to conceal them, not only from the government, but maybe even from his own legal counsel, who then went forward into the world and may have given inaccurate information to the government.
So, Danny, the judge presiding over the Trump's classified documents case has given Trump's legal team a Thursday deadline for organizing sensitive evidence that will be the focal point of his trial. How do you defend a case when much of the evidence is classified?
Slowly. I mean, there are procedures for handling these kinds of document cases.